Hello everybody, my name is Johan and I'm one of the tour and expedition leaders here at Wildeye. Now, as you've seen in the past, this is the Behind the Frame series where we share some of our images, kind of where it was taken, the gear we used, how we managed to get the image, and also just chat through it in Lightroom and maybe give you guys at home some suggestions, some ideas from a post-processing point of view, and also maybe just some ideas from a photographic skill or technique that you can use in the future. Alright, so let's get straight into it. I'm going to be sharing, first of all, maybe a couple of photos with you just to show you through a sequence, and also, why I sort of chose this particular image out of the sequence to share with you guys. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so as you can see here, there's a few images that I've selected over here. Now, this is going to be the one, just show it in full screen. This is going to be the photo that I want to share with you guys in this episode, and the one that we're going to be editing. And the reason I love this photo is the guest that I had on the trip. So this was in Amboseli. The guest that I had on this private guided safari, we spoke about these kind of images and that we wanted to create something like this before we even went on the trip. So I love doing those sort of creating images that you've got it in your mind beforehand, so that when you see that image, sort of that scene unfolding in front of you, you kind of know what you want to capture. So just to show you a little bit through the sequence, so you can see one that's kind of the same scene, same focal length, but look at the difference just the low angle makes. You see that's kind of sort of sitting up a little bit more. For this, we had our cameras literally on the ground, and you get this beautiful dry lake bed. You get those cracks in there, and it's almost like a leading line leading into the elephants, which I really enjoy. There's another image of the same scene a little bit later, but you can see not having as much of the foreground, having more sky, and then also zooming in a little bit more. So something that I encourage my guests to do a lot, and I think for a lot of people that if you're just starting your photographic journey, is often people will pick up their lens with the most reach, so their biggest lens, and then you often you get to a stage where you often end up with a whole lot of images that look exactly the same. So I encourage my guests. We were shooting with 24 to 70s, which is quite a wide angle lens, but I think the results that we got just speak for themselves. So let's get straight into it, straight to editing this particular image. We're gonna go. So that's the one with you can still see the dry lake bed, but it's a little bit higher up. This one with the low angle, this is what I want to work on. And again, mentioning the low angle, this was in the private concession within Amboseli. So you do have the opportunity to get out the vehicle and lie on the ground and actually put your camera right on the ground to get that low angle in it. And I encourage you guys, if you do get the opportunity to do this, make use of it. Really get those low angles, because it does give you a totally different look and feel to your image, compared to if you were sitting up or if you were zooming in a little bit more. Okay, so let's get straight into it. And something I try and encourage people from an editing point of view is kind of know what you want to do beforehand, before you actually start editing the image. Know what you want to do. We'll just make that screen a bit bigger. So for me, the first thing I want to get out is I want to get a little bit more detail in the sky. You can see with my histogram, those highlights or the bright areas are touching the sides. So I've lost a bit of information here. So I want to try and darken this up a little bit, and potentially maybe get a little bit more detail in this foreground. So let's start off. We're going to start with our highlights here, and let's just drop them down a bit. And look what's happening to that sky. Okay, so already you can see that sky is really sort of popping out a lot more. There was a bit of rain that was falling on this afternoon, And then what we want to do is also lift the shadows in the foreground. Okay, so lift the shadows up a little bit. And just to give you guys, let's just have a look at the information here. So you can see I was shooting with a 2470. We were shooting at about 3/20th of a second at f10, so 1600. Okay, so it was kind of like as the sun was going down. Okay, so we've got our highlights we've dropped in the sky, and I would always encourage people to do these global adjustments first, and then we'll go into the individual areas, the sky and the foreground. Let's lift those whites up a little bit. Okay, just a touch. And we're going to just drop these blacks down a little bit as well. Okay, so just to have a look, just by, 1, 2, 3, 4 sliders, you can already see I've got a bit more detail on the sky and some more colors that have come through there as well. All right, we're going to lift the vibrance a touch here just to get some more color into that sky there. And now let's go into the individual masking areas. So the new upgrades in Lightroom really is super cool. The artificial intelligence they're using to work on the sky and on the visual subjects really does add a lot to your frame. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't upgraded to the new software, do it, because it'll make your processing so much easier. Okay, so we're going to select the sky over here. Just wait for it to pick it up. Okay, so it's done a pretty good job there. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring that exposure down a little bit. Right? Drop that exposure. We can drop it quite a bit there. Really get that sky nice and moody. And then we can also maybe drop highlights down a bit more. But then also I want to keep those white areas, those true whites. I want to keep it in there. Maybe something like that. And let's just drop those blacks down a bit more as well. You can see those clouds are really getting nice and moody now. If we hit F for full screen, you can see that there's a beautiful sort of texture coming out, and a bit of like the detail that we lost originally. We're managing to bring some of that back. Okay, then we can have a look and see if we can select our subject over here. Let's see if it will pick it up. Okay, so a little bit far. I can't pick up the subject. That's not a problem. We'll work on that a little bit later. Now, what I want to do here is this foreground. I just want to get a little bit more detail in there as well. So we're going to go up to create a new mask. We're going to go to our linear gradient. And what we're going to do here is from the bottom, we click and drag up. You see it works from the bottom. So all those red areas will get affected. Okay. So we want to lift this up maybe a little bit more. Maybe make this a bit bigger. And then, so you see the areas at the bottom here. You see there's like very dark red, and then it gradually sort of evens out. So that's your feather right up at the top that you can adjust. But for me in this particular case, I'm quite happy with the feathering at the moment, and we'll just bring this down a little bit. So I don't want it to affect the elephants or the sky over there. Okay. All right, so we hit O to get rid of the overlay. And now what I want to do is just lift the whites up here a little bit, just to get a bit more detail on that foreground. Maybe lift exposure just a touch. Just a little bit. You see, you get beautiful sort of detail onto that foreground now. Okay. I forgot one thing I wanted to add to that sky as well, is if we just lift the dehaze up a bit as well. Again, you don't want to be very careful with the dehaze. If you go too much, it's going to start looking unnatural very, very quickly. Please do not do that. But we just lift it up a little bit. Okay. And then you can see that sky is really, it's actually also still too much. Lift up to there maybe. And then maybe lift a little bit of texture in the sky. Now you see this area over here to the right of the frame, that is still quite bright. So what we can do is maybe with a brush is, let's just make that a bit bigger. Just going to brush over here and just sort of tone that down just a touch. Let's just see if we bring those highlights down a little bit. You see the difference. It's very subtle, but you can see now. Have a look at my histogram. My bright areas are not peaking over here. Okay, they're not peaking, so that seems to be all good over there. Okay, maybe here with my tone curve, I might lift the lights. Now, just to show you guys the difference between the whites and the blacks, and then lights and darks. So these whites and blacks, that's your pure whites and pure blacks that you find in your image. What happens with these lights and darks is that could be your light yellows, light blues, light greens, and the same thing with the darks. So this doesn't affect just the pure whites, it affects those sort of light colors, the light and dark colors. But also have a look. I've put my clipping on here, so you can see if I lift it up too much, you can see there it's showing that I've burnt this out again. So I would always keep my histogram open when I'm editing images, just to keep an eye to make sure that I'm not clipping over there. Okay, so maybe just over there, and then we'll bring those darks a little bit forward. Okay, let's have a look in the full screen. Okay, so if we look at where we started, so that's the original raw image. This is now the image that we've edited, and I would have a look again in the full screen, just make sure I'm happy with it. Maybe those colors, it is quite blue over here, so let's just see if we maybe just bring those highlights up just a fraction, and maybe just lift the temperature up here a little bit, just to get like some warmer colors through there. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good, I think. I would also then remember to always sharpen your images as well. So for those that haven't done the sharpening, there's quite a few ways that you can do this, but I would encourage you guys to make use of the masking. So if I just take my amount up here and I drag that to the right, that's going to sharpen the entire image, which I don't want. I want maybe most of it on my subject, and maybe a bit of the foreground as well. Remember, if you're shooting in especially low light, by increasing the amount with your sharpening, it does add a bit of the noise as well. So you don't want to affect that on the entire frame. So let's have the masking. We hit Option on the Mac, and you click in. Now whatever goes black is not going to get sharpened anymore. Okay, so we there we go. You can see the foreground and the subject. So very little of the background is still being sharpened. So somewhere about there, and then you can lift your amount up. Okay, I normally go sort of to about 50, 55. Hardly ever go more than that. This potentially could also work as a black and white image. I actually enjoy that even more, maybe. Let's just have a look. Black and white, so V is a shortcut. Black and white or color. I don't know. What do you guys think? I quite like the black and white look in this, to be honest with you. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, with the black and white, I'm happy to maybe do another one of these that we can sort of work through the black and white process. I don't know. It's up to you guys. Black and white or color. What would you prefer? Okay, so that's quite a nice, short, easy one for you guys. I hope there's a few ideas in there. I think maybe a few things to take away from this is it's not so much about. I think we often get stuck with the technical side of photography. The apertures and shutter speeds, and a lot of those things are important, but really make use of angles, low angles, and maybe an idea for the future is, when you go on Safari again and you come across a particular scene, try and use your wider lens first. Take a few shots with a wide angle lens, and then you go to your main zoom lens. Create something a little bit different. You might just be surprised with the results that you're going to get. That's it from me, guys. If you have any questions, ideas, or if you want to send a few of your photos through to us, please give us a shout, send us an email or DM on Instagram. More than happy to assist. But that's it from me for this particular episode, and I look forward to sharing more of these in the future. Until next time, cheers.